Hi, everyone. Welcome to What About This Idea?
Welcome to What About This Idea?
Yeah.
We're so happy to be here. We've got a
We haven't recorded in a while, it feels like. Or did we?
Not for a couple weeks.
Yeah, not for a couple weeks.
It's the holiday season here.
It is. Winter is a little slow.
Yeah.
Summer and winter are the hard seasons.
It's true.
To get people to do things.
It's true. And we're in a new spot. We got a new studio spot here. We've got all kinds of fun spaces in the studio to play with.
I know, and we haven't even really built out the capabilities of our actual studio.
I know.
Yeah.
It's going to be so fun.
If you are an artist out there in the world and you are looking for a place to hang art, let me tell you, we have got a spot for you.
We do, and we have a lot of traffic in here, actually.
That's the point. We have a lot of people in, relatively important roles in the world who might like to buy art. And we're just looking for an artist or two. I thought it seemed like exploitation until I talked to an artist who was like, no, you're that's really nice, actually. Did you want to give them a nice space to put their art? Don't feel bad about that. I'm like,
and sell their art.
Yes, but then every artist I talk to is too afraid to do it.
Oh, come on, people.
Come on. Let's put
do
some art in here.
Anyway,
what about this idea? Yeah, that's the show. Oh.
Hey.
We have a guest today.
We do. I know, Brittany. I don't think I even really went through your last name. Can I try?
You can try, and then I'll give you an easy way to remember it.
Heyboer.
Yeah, because that's how it's spelled. It's actually Heyboer, and so it's like saying hi to a boar, and then you'll never forget it.
Okay.
Hi to a
Hi,
boar.
boar.
Hi, boar.
You are.
Yeah.
You're testing the capability. You said you'll never forget it. Oh, I can forget things.
But you're outdoorsy, right? Like, hi, boar.
Yeah, it is helpful.
Yeah,
it is very helpful.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So if I were to try and remember it with that, I'd be like, okay, no, she gave us something to remember. Her name, it's like, has something to do with a pig.
Right.
And, I don't remember. It was like a direction or something.
And then I'd look at it and be like, hey, boy. I did it wrong. I know she said it's like a salutation to a boar.
Hey. I also will respond to that. I have to be honest. That's how I said my husband's last name for a while.
Yeah.
And every friend was like, that's not how it's said. I'm like, oh, that's right.
So even you got it wrong
yes.
at one point.
Where did
I
it
will
come
admit
from?
that.
What nationality is this?
Dutch. Yeah,
Dutch.
he's
does sound
actually,
Dutch, yeah.
his family lives right outside of Holland, Michigan, so there's a lot of Dutch. He's 100% Dutch. So, and my children look that way. They are blonde, bleach blonde.
Really?
Yeah.
I know, you're like,
and one of them has
really,
blue eyes.
I know they're mine, because they,
Yeah.
Isn't that funny how genetics work?
yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny how genetics works.
I mean, I got 3 kids and they're all, 2 of them are boys, 1's a girl. There's a genetic difference, I think.
Fair.
Right? No, but they're also very different
I know,
in so
right?
many ways. You know?
I feel like, and I'm speaking completely out of turn because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Oh,
but I
that's
feel
the
like
show.
the more mutts that we are, the less dominant our characteristics comes. If he's like 100% Dutch,
it's strong.
That's like strong.
Or like brute force.
Strong
Well, I'm gonna make Dutch babies.
force genes.
I love a
kind
good
of
Dutch baby. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Right there.
Aren't those in the
pancake
oven? Yeah.
thing? Yeah.
And they blow up.
Are the pannenkoeken?
It's Pannenkoeken is maybe
you
also
make them?
Dutch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we've made them.
Does your husband speak Dutch?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
Verboten is the only thing I can remember from
That's
being.
German,
I used to do
but
it.
I think Dutch and German are very similar
close.
in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Verboten is also Dutch
think
for
so, yeah.
forbidden. And
Okay.
the Dutch like to forbid a lot of things. Like this is not allowed.
And then allow other things.
And then allow other things, right?
Wow, we are giving them Dutch history on
I
this
know.
one.
I used to spend a lot of time in the Netherlands.
Okay.
I used to do a bunch of work there, and I could not pick it up. But here's I have zero Dutch in me.
Okay.
But everyone thought I was a local, and so they would always speak Dutch to me. And if I could have just picked up one thing, the only thing I remember is verboten, because everything was verboten.
They used it a lot.
Yeah, it was everywhere, verboten.
It's true.
And they have that. Oh, here's another thing about the Dutch.
Oh. So if you didn't know, you can come to What About This Idea for history.
A little
It
bit of
may
history,
not be
little
accurate.
tidbits.
You might want to Google
Little
it,
biology.
ChatGPT
Little
it.
biology,
A
little
little
science. We do a little
biogenetics
science. Yeah.
and history.
Oh, we talk about
So
it.
the other thing the Dutch do, and I know a lot of people know that they were the first ones to have smoke shops and all of that, right? Well, now it's everywhere, but back in the day, they just tolerated that sort of society. They're accepting in that way, but also they have this thing where if you walk past their house, like a lot of them have their houses, they don't close their shades. Like they don't, they want it open, but you're not supposed to look.
It's their modern.
That's really hard because you want to look so badly, and it's like everyone's like trying to look out of the corner of their eye, see them.
They're sitting at their table eating dinner.
Their eye, and they're like,
verboten.
Look, verboten. Looking
Das
is
ist verboten.
verboten.
They hold up those signs. Wow.
Yeah, that's all.
Fascinating.
I know it's fascinating, but that is pretty much of all the time I spent over a year and a half in the Netherlands. That's pretty much all I remember.
Okay.
So,
Well, Brittany, it was really nice having you on the show.
to talk about
You're
your
welcome.
husband's
No, I mean, this
heritage.
has been
Not even about me.
this has been great. It's been great to get to know you. The show's over.
You got me.
I know so much more about you, and I think that the world does too, and we really appreciate it.
So glad to be here.
Oh, wait.
for the opportunity.
It's just the beginning.
We went off the rails
around
pretty
for
quick
more.
there.
Yeah. It was,
Yep.
yeah. Well, there aren't really any rails, this is a show about entrepreneurship.
Yep.
I don't know. Sometimes entrepreneurs, you have to get the rails really tight and do the rail thing, but a lot of times they're kind of coming off the rails.
Well, because we as an entrepreneur, you spend a lot of times half off the rails.
Yep.
I feel like that's
Right? I mean,
but then
nothing
everyone's
goes
like,
straight.
Here's how you
Yeah.
do it the right way, and everyone's like, okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. And then they're like,
It's like, that did not work. That did not work.
that's what it feels like
Yeah.
anyway. So what brings you in? What are you doing here?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur.
That makes
Good
sense.
start.
Good
Because
start.
that's what this show is. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What sort of an entrepreneur?
So I am the founder and CEO of a company called Unlock Her Co., which focuses on supporting women and empowering them to get unstuck is what I really talk about. It's a success coaching brand. And it's not just get unstuck, but it's tapping into the part of her that's actually keeping her stuck, which is where your thoughts, beliefs, programming, identity live. We're going to go deep. And honestly, that's where 95% of our behaviors are driven by, whether you're a woman or a man.
I was going to say, is this also
Yes.
applicable to men?
Yes.
You just happen to focus on women.
Yes.
Which is fine.
Yes. So yes.
You ever fix a man? You ever like, all right, I'll take you in the back and get you working.
Unfixable.
Get you working.
I have chosen,
Unfixable.
as the
just
name
curious.
says, but I do get a lot when I work with women. They're like, man, my husband or my partner could benefit from this work too. And some of them are on their own growth journey. I have other people that work with both men and women. So
He's
I
out
kinda-
golfing and smoking cigars. He's like, I don't need that shit.
That's his therapy. That's his
Yeah, whatever.
Fine.
That's for you ladies. Oh,
Yes.
nice swing, Bob.
I mean, if that works for you and works for them,
right,
beautiful.
right.
To each their own, right? But yeah, I really focus on where 95% of your behaviors are driven by, which is your subconscious mind.
Of course, yeah.
You know, so I.
Dark place in there.
It's also the place like. That's so cool to understand because
Yeah.
a lot of times you feel stuck and you're like, why the heck? Am I allowed to swear on here?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Why the hell?
Fuck yeah.
Why the heck?
I don't
Why
swear
the
a ton,
fuck?
but I do. I'm like, I should ask that.
Do you know
but
this
why?
is not? I would guess, and I'm pretty sure I'm certainly clear about this. This is not any child's favorite show. There's not a single child in the whole world that was like, Mom, look what I found on YouTube.
Maybe the history part might
Weird
get shared.
kid.
They
That's
can learn
true.
some history.
You know.
There's
true.
a lot. We love you, kids.
Sorry about that, kids out there.
We'll try and clean it up.
But it's like, you know, when you're stuck, you're like, why the hell am I stuck? Like you were talking, you all have shared like, right, there's all these different strategies and methods and different things, tactics and habits. Well, what people don't understand is that only drives 5% of your behaviors because you're doing all of that with your conscious mind.
Yes.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, what truly drives your behavior is what's underneath that, which is your subconscious. And I'm sure I'll share lots of facts, but one of the facts that I could not unlearn, because this is actually a space like I've really been in for the last couple years, but I didn't have a clue about it. It's not like I like grew up and knew about my subconscious mind. It was like, this is what I'm going to do. It's a part
Grandma
of my story.
passed it down to you. Like,
Yeah. I'm like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. And had you asked me a couple years ago if I would be doing what I'm doing today, I would have like been like, absolutely not.
That's very entrepreneurial of you in a certain way to be doing
really
something
is.
very different than what you were doing several years prior. Yeah.
And yet I can see the red thread of like why I ended up here, because I consider myself a personal development junkie. I was picking up self-help books, like I was a nonfiction reader. It was always a part of what I was interested in, but I was focused on the conscious work. I didn't even have a clue about the subconscious work. But that's why people are stuck, is because they're so focused on this layer and they don't go. I always use an iceberg image. You've seen that because you've heard me talk, but it's like your conscious level is like the top of the iceberg above the water. The subconscious is everything that's underneath that.
That's the big part.
Yeah.
So
and it's uncomfy.
Yeah. Well, I have so many, even though I know you, right? And I am incredibly impressed with you. I also have a million questions.
Yes.
So do you get this reaction when people say this? Like, I would think that people are like, ooh, God, is that going to be painful?
Yeah.
You know, going there? Like I don't want
to.
I've been ignoring that part of my subconscious for my whole life.
Yeah.
Do you get that reaction? And is it painful?
It's
That's a good question.
It's a great question. And so lots of people are like, this feels really uncomfy and like I don't want to get into my shit. Like and it can feel like it's going to be, because what I call my work is really complementary therapy work. I'm not a therapist.
Right.
And so what we do
You're not a licensed therapist, correct?
Not a licensed therapist, so I should share that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm certified in all things subconscious reprogramming, because actually a lot of therapists aren't working with your subconscious mind, depending on if they're certified in those techniques. So I actually see a lot of people come to me who are also doing therapy, which I love. Like I love when my clients are doing therapy and this work.
Okay.
Because what we uncover are things they couldn't even talk to their therapist about, because they were only talking about things they're consciously aware of. Depending on what the therapist has techniques around. Like if the therapist can access that, beautiful. But a lot of times I get the clients that are working with talk therapists. And so we're able to uncover things. And then my scope of work is always about the future. We're always talking about learnings, the empowerment of it. And when people realize, oh, like I don't have to divulge my deepest, darkest secrets to you, then the walls start to fall down, because really we're focused on what can you learn from those past things that you're seeing. I have a variety of techniques that help you move through stuck emotions, because most of us are operating from stuck emotions because we behave from our emotions. We're emotional beings, right? And so there's a lot of people that come to me, and then a lot of people don't want to do it. So you see that too. But yeah, there's that, and then there's the, ooh, that's woo-woo. Like I get those two things. That's really uncomfortable, and that's woo-woo.
I think most people, if faced with that decision, want it gone, right?
Yeah.
If they're coming to you, they obviously have something they want gone.
Yeah.
Or they feel blocked, or you know, and I love that you're working with women too, because, you know, as we go back and forth in our strengths in society, I'm going to say it that way, because it seems to me there's a bit of a rollback right now.
Like an ebb and flow of
right.
Like are you talking like women's power within
women's
society?
Power, right?
Society? Sure.
But I think as much as, and I'd love to hear why you work more with women.
Yeah.
But I would guess, and you know, I just like to say what I think I know.
I love it
all the time.
I love it.
But I would guess that we end up being convinced of our worthlessness by ourselves. right? And by buying into the messages that we hear over and over again in society, right? That, it's been this, because I work a lot with women and try and get women in better positions and in breakout. I do a lot of work with Wendy Wiesman, as you do too, in RSB. And I think that women tend to allow society to tell them how to feel about themselves. And
subconscious.
And also be convinced that we are somewhere we're not.
Yeah.
In other words, the dudes on the cigar thing you were doing, right? The dudes on the golf course, right? They're like, there's no problem. You're fine. We're equal. It's the same. And it's like, in a sense, we're like, we want that to be true. Yeah. But it really isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have to ask, because of the woo-woo side of things, right, and everything. Like, when the man is saying, it's fine, we're equal, like, isn't he putting out into the universe that he actually believes that you're equal? Not that that's reality, but isn't that kind of funny? Because he's saying the thing that...
Well, if that worked, that's a great...
You know what I mean?
That's a great thought.
Because we're trying to make it the thing,
Okay, so Sam and I have been talking a lot about, and so this is a fun to connect these two, because we've been talking a lot about
shit. Yeah,
I love it.
Paying attention to your language, paying attention to focusing on the thing you want and not the thing that you don't want. But that's a conscious activity, right? So tell me how that, because a lot of times we're like, especially in the Midwest, it's like, how you doing? It's like, well, it's kind of a big struggle. You know what I mean? Life is a big struggle.
Yeah.
Or you're like, it's great.
It's one of the straight.
And really, you're in a big struggle.
I'm fine. You're fine. We're fine. But inside, you're like doubting yourself, right? And so I'm curious how the two work together, conscious focus, like catching yourself, creating something you don't want to create, but also having your subconscious being that like power driver of that.
Yeah, because it both matter. And it's interesting that you're talking about the language and putting things out, because what I'm certified in is something called neuro-linguistic programming. I'm a practitioner in that space. Really a fancy way to say how your language to yourself and to others impact your behaviors, your results, and your reality. Because at the end of the day, that is, like you're saying. And so it's both a subconscious of figuring out, like, what is that language? Because a lot of it goes back to the beliefs that maybe you're not totally aware of, because you're like, there's a lot around like affirmations and say it over and over again. And like, which is beautiful and helpful, but what if you're not actually getting to the core of what's behind that, right? And so that's where my work comes in, is we get to the core of what's actually behind that, so that it can work faster. Because why change can feel like it takes a ton of time and is really hard is because we are only focused on those efforts that are conscious level, which are helpful, but it takes longer because you're not actually getting to the core of it, and you're not bringing in those things into your subconscious mind through particular techniques that can help you do that.
I mean, this is fascinating. This is fascinating for several reasons, right? One, you're an entrepreneur doing this, but also the fact that what entrepreneurs are dealing with, right?
Yes.
It pulls exactly straight from their subconscious, right? Like, and
100%.
How you deal with, that's why there's such a varied path to success in entrepreneurship, because it's like, I have certain beliefs about myself that have me act in a certain way.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And for me to really identify those, so I'm not getting in my own way.
Yeah.
Which I feel like happens quite often.
All the time. And that's why you can do the same, right? People can do the same exact thing in entrepreneurship.
Am I talking about myself? Yes, I am.
God, I have so many questions, though. Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
But right, like that's why in entrepreneurship, you see some people be really successful with certain strategies and methods, or, faster successes. Potentially they have a very different belief system that actually believes things are possible for them. A lot of us don't actually, as much as we want something, don't believe it's actually possible for us.
Right. And you will say, I believe it.
Yes.
I got this. Like, I see it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some core thing that is not believing it. That is sabotaging, basically.
Yep.
So, I mean, do you deal with, like, I know that from what I've read, not everybody has an inner voice, but 70% or something do, right?
Yep.
I can't imagine not having that voice, that, like.
I agree with that. I can't imagine it either.
Right.
I have full ass arguments with that voice.
Does yours have a name?
Yeah.
Some people give theirs a name.
Really?
And I find it helpful.
You've named
people.
yours?
Yeah.
We don't
Will
need
you
to
tell
know,
us?
But
Okay.
it's okay.
No pressure.
It's
Holy crap! It's okay.
it's an actual person. It's an actual person.
Let's
Oh,
leave it
it's
at
like
that.
someone you
Yeah.
actually know.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So I don't want
that's-
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you.
And I'm pretty sure, like, who knows? She's not listening. It's my mom's name.
Yeah, that's what I kind
Marge.
of figured.
And my mom's name is Marge, and so it is absolutely her voice that is stuck there.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I
get
use
it.
Marge. And then for the other side, the more enlightened voice is Betty. And Betty is...
Oh, you have two?
I have
Well, yeah,
two.
'cause she's got the
Betty's
two sides.
You got the little
parts.
the two little
You
devils.
gotta be arguing with
We do
somebody.
a lot
angel.
with parts.
Marge
So
and Betty.
That's fine.
Marge
Yeah.
and Betty are always arguing. And Betty is the more enlightened one. And Betty was actually, funny enough, I chose Betty because we've talked about this before, I was adopted. And for the first 6 or so months, I was in foster care, and they needed a name for me. And that was Betty. They called me Betty back in that day, right? And so I see that name as my innocent, before it all
It's still attached
went,
to you in a way, for
before
sure.
it all went wrong, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Before it all went wrong.
well, I mean, before, life
I mean, you were in
tainted-
an orphanage.
Yeah, I was in a foster home.
Foster home?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's just, that's a language, right? It's a curious way, knowing you as long as I have, that's a curious way for you to have put that.
Well,
everything
it's-
went wrong after you were adopted?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know some of the history there, but that's,
Yeah.
is that,
It's, oh my God, we're getting really vulnerable. I'm okay with this, right?
I was
I'm okay
gonna
with
say,
this, right?
we don't
Okay.
have to-
don't let me,
Okay,
don't let me-
people, forgive me for whatever it is that comes out of my mouth. So I had a confusing upbringing, right? I was a victim of sexual assault. I was a victim of physical abuse. I watched my father hurt my mother, right? Like all those things. And Sam and I were even talking about some of this yesterday. And it was like, people will say to me, how are you so normal after all that, right? Like how did you, and I'm like, well.
Marge is like, I'm not that normal.
You're not normal.
Betty's like, you're normal.
They're like, and if you could understand what's happening right now as you say that. Yeah.
You're a monster inside. But absolutely, I'm going to give you this story. I know none of my family listens to my podcast, so if they do, then we'll deal with that. But so I was hurt by a family member sexually, right? But it was never talked about. Like it was never. In fact, the majority of my life, I had an inkling that I had made it up.
Yeah.
Right, your
Right?
brain protected you. in a
Because we
certain-
never talked about it.
subconscious protection.
Yeah,
is.
and so that idea of me thinking I made up this major thing I was telling people that happened to me was quite a mind fuck, right?
Yeah.
So it was like
1000%.
and I'll tell you how I recognize that. It was oh my God. Okay. So it was a family member that did this to me. It was never talked about. And then it came up because another family member told someone else, right? That I had told them. And then that person who did that to me was asked, did you do this to her? And they said no.
Denied. Yeah.
They denied it, right?
Yeah.
And so it just, like I said, I do not want to talk to that other person because I'm not going to spend any time convincing them that this actually happened.
Right.
Because how could I have made this up as like an 8-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And just last year, the person that did it to me called me and apologized.
Acknowledged.
Wow.
Acknowledged that he did it and that he was making amends for all the shit he did during that time period. And immediately I noticed that I believed I was a liar, that I believed I was being untruthful to everyone.
You noticed?
I noticed that my subconscious believed I was a liar.
Prior to
that I was making it up.
Did that?
Because
did his admission of it free you from that belief that you were lying?
It made it obvious that I had been believing I was a liar this whole time.
Yeah.
So
and then when it was affirmed that it actually did happen, I noticed what I believed about myself.
Did Betty punch Marge?
And Betty was like, see, I've been telling you this whole time. You're amazing.
But Marge's voice is loud.
And Marge is like, no, you're not. You did that thing.
And Betty's like, bam.
Yeah.
That's for all the years you made her think, you made me think that I was a liar.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was so much easier to believe
Jesus,
that
why
I
can't
was a liar than to try and figure out how to deal with it.
What's got me stuck? Because that shit didn't happen to me. Like, that's terrible.
I know, but you know, we all have a different...
What I will tell you is there is people who've walked out, but there are also situations that your mind and body believe is just as extreme as that, but but
they're not.
It doesn't, you were kind of like brush it off because it wasn't, like when you hear that out loud, you're like, oh, that was nothing.
Yeah, totally.
Because I've worked with clients and even some stuff myself because I didn't walk that story either. And it's like these minor things that turned into really big things. Is what has people stuck. But there's also like thank you for trusting this audience and me with that part of your story. It's what's unfortunate is like that comes up a lot. And so I think people hearing from you on that and being like, okay, I'm not alone.
Oh goodness, no. I mean, you are not alone.
But you know what I mean? I think is sometimes a lot of us believe things only happen to us because we convince ourselves and then we tell ourselves like we're the liar or whatever it is. So thank you for trusting.
I did. I'm sure we probably need to. I always imagine. I always have visuals for things, and for you, my visual is that you like reach into people's heads and you take out the dirty stuff, and then you put some light back in there.
I really like that because I'm always thinking of new ways to talk about subconscious reprogramming because that always makes people's eyes glaze over a little bit when you say those words. But it's
a
like
challenging thing.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a Pink Floyd video.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's one of those things, one of the things that I work with clients on, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, and a lot of times people will go back to those situations, which I have shared that I don't a lot of times need to know what you go back to, but it's a technique that I am certified in called time techniques because our subconscious is our higher drive, so it's got a timeline. It's got all these different events all the way back, even generational. And then if you believe in past life, there's past life on there. And we go back, like I normally go back, there's 6 core emotions that normally drive everything in our life. And so we go back and actually release the first time you felt that. And there's lots of layers because you'll say some people can only, like I'll have clients go back to like their teens or their 20s, and that your subconscious will only bring forward what it believes you can safely handle, which is why sometimes people don't always realize things like different things happened in their life. But then you go back and you release that by actually gathering learnings from that moment so that you can be more resilient and be like, okay, around fear or guilt or shame or what it might be, your subconscious, once it gets the learnings, you can actually move through, like you'll still experience those emotions, but your subconscious is going to apply all those beautiful learnings when you experience that so that it doesn't, because sometimes when whatever emotion is tied to some of these different events, when you experience something today, you're actually experiencing that emotion in that intensity. Like, have you ever felt like you've gotten completely hijacked and you're like, I don't even know why I'm so frustrated or so pissed off about this or whatever. And that's because your subconscious has pulled from, like, it's made an assumption that it's similar to something you've experienced in the past because you're pulling from that. And so I help clients release that. And what's beautiful about the work that I do is that in a lot of personal development, it's like, do these 20 things after we meet. Like, do these, like, these
There's
are all
always
the things.
a number.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
do
here's
these
the
3
checklist.
things. Here's
10 ways to release your subconscious.
Yeah.
Honestly, that like generally, if I see something like that, I'm like, I hate you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do your 13 proven steps to get you to be a better person.
Yeah.
Even though you read them, you're like, ah, that's pretty nice.
But that's the thing, right? Like, we're already doing so much. And so what's cool about the work that I do is, yeah, there'll be things that would be helpful for you to do, different techniques and practices, but a lot of what we do is in the sessions. So like that technique, I have clients that like, and you go through an emotional detox sometimes. So that's the uncomfy part, is like you're releasing different like you might feel more irritable for the next 24 hours, couple of days, because you're detoxing emotions through your mind and body. But by the next week, people are like, I don't even know why I'm operating differently. And I'm like, oh yeah, we released a lot of unwanted emotions. So you're able to show up a very different person.
Get rid of that shit.
Yeah.
I think I've felt that. I think I've felt that with meditation. I haven't done meditation lately, but I would get done with meditation and be like, why do I feel so weird and fuzzy? You know, I'm like, my brain's all, like, I felt really good while I was meditating, and now I feel all weird.
Yeah, it's the detox.
Yeah.
It's the detox.
Stupid.
So I would like to, can you give us some, because I think people are like, why would I do that?
Why would I do it? Well,
Why? I'm fine, man.
Yeah.
I don't need to go back there.
Yeah.
Like,
should we get deep into that in the second half?
are we already to the half?
Yeah, we are.
We spent a good chunk on the Dutch history.
We did, and we have
right,
a
let's
lot
do
more to
it.
talk. I really want to. You know how I operate.
Mm-hmm.
I have questions that I think would be the questions that the skeptics would have, right?
Yeah.
I'm sort of in between a little bit.
And I love that.
More on the side of I understand this stuff has got some real power, but I don't mind asking the questions that feel like. So is that, and then you have more experience in all of this than I do, for sure.
I
think that's a good balance
I
there.
know neuro-linguistic programming has been around for years, and I think it's just finally becoming more mainstream and as a scientific method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
those are some of the questions I'm going to ask.
Exactly.
What
So-
science is it?
Yeah, but I think what Brittany can shed light on is maybe some of how that works, but also what has happened for people once they release that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, second half.
Second half? Okay.
Boom.
Thanks.